Hello and welcome. This is Julianne, and this is Life Edit and Design. And I wanted to give you an update on the yoga planner because I built in some new functionality at the request of a user. So I wanted to kind of explain to you how it flows and kind of go from there. And I'm sorry you can hear my dogs in the background. They're excited. So let's start at the bottom and work our way up. So what I've added is a new library system. So you have a pose library. This is going to be all the poses that you like to use. And then it goes to a flow library. So from the flow library, you'll put together a series of poses from the pose library, and that will put it together into a flow. And that at the class level, you'll have a class, obviously you'll have multiple classes, but you'll put together different flows that you want to use in a particular class. So if this class was a yin class, you might have one flow, and if this was a hatha class, you'd have a different flow. And then you have your class series. So this would be something that you've been contracted for at a gym, or something that you're doing a series maybe of an online class, and it's made up of multiple classes. So the series will have multiple classes. Then each series will pulling from the same flow library, pulling from the same pose library. So let's take a look at how that would work. So here we are in the yoga dashboard, on the business dashboard. And so you have a class series. So say you've been contracted at a particular gym, you're going to be teaching. These are the days of the week you're teaching. And it's a little bit of information about the class. And then you have a different class series, and this is what you're teaching there. So how does that work? So this is the class series, and it has appointments. And you'll see these appointments are down here in your calendar. So each of these is referencing a class date from this calendar. But then when you're into a class, we want to go into the class details. So you would have a class library. So if you're in, let's close this up for a minute, get a little closer. So if you're in a slow flow for beginners, you're going to teach a different class on Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, right? These are all going to be different classes. So what would you want to teach? Well, maybe one of those is a new moon. So we're looking at the slow flow for beginners. So maybe you're doing a healing class. You have a healing intention class, beginner level, emotional, and you've named as kind of a slow flow Tuesday, right? So you're going to be doing this on a Tuesday for your slow flow for beginners classes. But then what you would do is you'd open this up, and then you would go into your flow library, and you would pick one of your flows, right? So maybe flow A, flow B, flow C. Let's pick flow C. Why not? So now you have flow C assigned to this class, and you can have obviously multiple flows. We're going to do flow C, and then if you, didn't want to go there. And if you go into your flow library, you'll have all these flows, and in the flows, you'll have your poses that came from your pose library. So I've only built in 3 poses here. So just for example purposes, you're going to want to build in your own flows, your own poses. So you have your pose, you have the Sanskrit name, the type, and I've built in just the common types, which obviously you can change these to whatever you need, the levels, and then your cues as you teach it, benefits, and any notes that you want to have about a particular pose. So that'll all be kind of here as a handy reference. But then you will take these poses and build them into a flow. So in this case, we took the lotus and the standing forward pose. Again, just playing around here. And then you do your duration, like, so how long would this flow last? So you may have a sun salutation, you may have all your different poses in there, and then this lasts, maybe it's 3 times. And if you want to say 3 times and you're going to repeat it, that's up to you. So you could have this flow repeat a couple times during the class. So maybe in your notes you'd have here repeat 3 times, something like that. So that might be your notes on this. And then your class details is going to be going back up to which class are you applying this flow to. But you're not going to do that from here, right? So pretend that this doesn't even exist. This is for reference. So this shows you that, remember we talked about a minute ago that we assigned flow C to slow Tuesday. So that's how this column is going to drop in, is as you pick a flow. So let's go through this again, because I know it's a little bit confusing. It's a little bit choppy, but I kind of want you to think about it like maybe if you're planning a meal. So you're going to have a meal. It's called the New Moon Meal, right? It's part of your relaxation yoga series. But when you open it up, though, you need to assign some flows. So let's say we're going to do flow A. And again, I'm sorry, but my dogs are barking. Flow B. And so that's going to be the flows that you're going to use in this class. You need to make it up to 60 minutes because you got a 60-minute class going on here. And so those are going to be the flows. And when you're in the flows, you'll have your different poses. So if we're in flow B, we could say, okay, we're going to do a triangle pose, standing forward. I know that doesn't make sense, but that's just our examples. And you could change the order, like, okay, I want, so you can grab these 6 buttons and go this way. So you'd put together all your poses, name your flow, something that makes sense to you, and then you'd have all your poses and you could add them, drag them around, make them whatever order you're going to do them in. And that will be now your flow. So here you have a library. Consider this would be all your poses. Then you're going to put them up here into your flow. And then you're going to assign particular flows to your class. So let's go back to this drawing again. So now this makes more sense, right? You have this pose library. These are all the poses. You're going to take some poses and assemble them into flows. You're going to take some flows and apply them to a class. And this class is going to have different flows than this class, which will then mean you have different poses going throughout. But you could create a flow that's called, say, your intro flow, and that you use it in every class. That you could do your sun salutation A. You could make that something you put in both classes. So it'd already be set up with your pose library, already into a flow that makes sense to you, the name that makes sense, and then you apply it to classes. So this is your class series, but your classes are different within the series. So it's a little bit chunky. It's the best way I could put it together for you. So that you can see how it all flows through. And then when you have a class and you pick your class, so it's Tuesday, you can see what you were thinking about. You can also write your things here if you don't want to use, I gave you 2 methods, so you can do it this way, which is just write it out and write each class. Or you can go through and pull something from your flow library, and then you could pick flow A and have that all in here. And then it would be flow A, and there's your poses that you put in flow A. These are the classes where you were going to use flow A. So if you ever want to know, hey, when did I last use this flow? How long has it been? You can see which classes you've been using it into, and you can see your notes, and that's all kind of built in there. So you're going to want to tweak this, obviously, for the way your brain works. I've given you a few options. So you can use the option of using this flow library up here, or you could just write down your notes here. Whichever way you want to do it. I want to give you multiple options because, again, your brain works the way it works, right? And I can't tell how you're going to think about it and how you want to use it. So I've given you a couple different options now. So now you have a flow library, a pose library, you have levels. I didn't create filters, but you can filter at any time. So if you're creating a flow and you only want poses of a certain level, you can always filter and only get certain poses. So you could filter and then say, okay, I want to filter by level and I want just the beginner levels. So if you do that, now you'll see that you have just the beginner poses, which we didn't put any in there. So you would see the beginner poses. So I'm going to remove that library. Let's just show you so you can see an intermediate. We have all levels. So you can see that. So you'd see the filter now just gives you the all levels. So it kind of gives you an idea if you're making an advanced class, you'll have an idea of which poses you want to use without having to scroll through this whole thing. You could just filter. So I hope that gives you some ideas on how to use this. And it, again, is a little bit advanced, so you might not want to start with this. So my recommendation is if you're just starting out, you may want to go into, say, this old version. I'm sorry, I'll get into the old version. And kind of just, why am I not getting what I want to get? There we go. You can just use this text way for a little while till you get the hang of it, and then move on if you want to and use the more advanced version where you're assigning the flow from your flow series right here. And then you could pick that again. You'd have to set that up with the flows that you want from the poses that you want. So a lot of layers here, but again, this is more advanced. So if you're just starting out, you might want to, again, start with text and then go on later on and start to build out your pose library and then build out your flow library. But it'll make it so much easier for you to build your class library once you have these in place, and you can go from one class to the other and duplicate classes so that if you're doing something like a new moon or a relax and recharge, you can have your flow already set up and you can kind of copy and paste and make things much quicker. So I hope that's helpful to you. Have a great day, and we will talk to you soon.